Hi, Sophia.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hey, everybody. I am the host this week. I'm not Jasmine. Jasmine's at a conference, so I'm taking her spot. And Sophia and I were chatting, gosh, a couple weeks ago, probably, and we just hit it off on this topic and said, why don't we use that for our LinkedIn Live and our industry chat session? So here we are. So Sophia is the SVP of Sales and Customer Success over at ComOps. Sophia, do you want to give us a little bit of background on what ComOps is?
Absolutely. Thanks, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everyone. Sofya Williams. I lead sales and customer success, as Stephanie mentioned, at ComUps. We are 5-year-old company, but we're growing really, really fast. We're actually supporting over 250,000 rooms globally on
Wow.
customer and employee experience. So ComUps, what we do is we connect, we help hotels connect what's happening behind the scenes with what guests actually experience, right? So we look at employee feedback, we look at guest sentiment, we also look at contact center data, operational data, as well as commercial performance. And when we connect all those signals, Stephanie, what's interesting is there's one trend that is really hard to ignore. So hotels that are looking at employee signals as kind of early warning signs, they do much better than those hotels that wait for guest reviews to show up.
Love it. Love it. And that's kind of what started our conversation when we were looking at Medallia's product, which is part of a Fixify, is the signals that are offered through the platform. And then you and I just kind of went off on a tangent. So that's what our topic is today is the guest experience that starts with your team and what it is, how you can make great team experiences and employee experiences, which in turn drive guest experiences. So I know we're not the only ones talking about this. I saw a podcast that was published yesterday from our partners over at Okra on their Spot On podcast. They had interviewed the CEO of Extreme Hospitality, and there was sentiment there about how strong internal cultures directly impact guest satisfaction, repeat business, bottom line profits, the whole thing. So jumping right into that, I mean, what is it that you think on why great guest experiences start with great employee experiences? Like, what's your theme and your bottom line there?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Stephanie. And I'd like to challenge that a little bit because we've heard it for so many years that great employee experience create great guest experience. I mean, that's true, but I do think we're looking at it a little bit backwards, right? I think great guest experience doesn't start with, check-in or when they're making their reservation. It really starts with manager having a conversation with their team members. Do you know that, and I'm sure you've experienced this firsthand, when you arrive at the hotel, you could feel when
Mm,
associates are engaged, when they're happy, you could
100%.
just feel it in your bones. It's a different atmosphere versus where everybody's stressed out. You could see that they're short-staffed, they're overwhelmed, or they just don't work as a one team. So
Absolutely.
I like to say that guests experience your employee experience.
Absolutely. And you do, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You feel it when you walk in. You can see the disconnected nature even between team members with each other. You can see that somebody's just not engaged. It's not the approach that you're looking for when your guest is walking in the door. You want them to feel welcome. You want them to just have that atmosphere of, we're so glad you're here. But if the employee is not glad to be there,
Right.
then why would that resonate over to the guest? So when you guys are looking at your data and when you're working with your clients and you're looking at those signals, you use the word signals, I really like that. What are some of the things that you usually see as the theme or what you're picking up on to identify this team is struggling, which in turn, I know that means their guest is struggling?
Yeah, when I think about employee experience, I think about it as kind of a smoke alarm, right? So it's the early detection
Yeah.
signal. And
The loud,
your
glaring noise.
and guests are kind of the fire alarm, right?
Yeah.
By the time you hear that alarm, damage is already done, so it's too late. So we also know data shows that 1 in 3 guests will switch brands after one bad experience.
Wow. That
That is
seems like a
really
high
powerful.
stat.
It is, and it's a lot to consider. So I think going back to employee experience, we know that a lot of times, yes, of course, pay is important, but it's not so much about compensation. What we see with employees is that it's more about removing friction points, right? What can you do, you know, what one focus on, take one friction point. What can you do to remove that? And then report that progress. Tell the team members, we've heard you. This is what we've done. It doesn't cost you anything. And that's how you earn the employee trust. They feel heard and they want to do better.
Yeah, I think the point of feeling heard is so valuable because, I mean, all of us have voices. Some of us are louder than others. And sometimes you do have to hone in and pay attention to that more quiet person that's on staff. Sometimes their voice should be louder and they have a lot to say. They just don't feel comfortable bringing it up. So being able to kind of go across the team and discover and uncover what each of their struggles are, especially from someone who may not be shouting it from the rooftops. Like, I'm a loud person, but when it comes to voicing things to maybe leadership in my past, or, when I was a little bit younger, whatever the case was, maybe I didn't feel as
Might not feel comfortable, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I really like that because I think as humans, we want to be heard, we want to be listened to. And if the staff feels that way, do you think in turn they complain more, or do you think that they're actually able to voice and feel comfortable and it's very valuable to management?
Super valuable, Stephanie. I think that's a really great point. So, example I'll give you, let's say housekeeping attendant who's reported that the vacuum is not working properly. They've been reporting it for several weeks. Nothing has been done about it. It's kind of going into a black hole. Eventually, that person, the housekeeping attendant, stops reporting on that issue. Leadership thinks everything is fine. A week later, it shows up in the guest complaints, right?
Yeah.
Cleaning scores drop. It didn't happen suddenly, right?
Yeah.
It's
The
just
vacuum
hotel.
did not fix itself.
Right. It just
Yeah.
stopped. Hotel just stopped listening.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a really good example. And I think as we think about what our employees are saying and the struggles that they're having and those friction points, are there changes that the hotel teams can make that don't impact cost? Because I know that's such a big struggle, right? We have very high costs. We're going into budgeting season. We're trying to make sure we're balancing. We don't want to do away with programs. What are some ways and some tricks where we can make sure that we're still hearing and solving and motivating, but we're not increasing our budget?
Yeah, that's a great point, Stephanie. And especially right now with budget season upon us, right? We all talk about costs and expenses. So the way I think about this, first of all, employee experience is not an HR initiative, right? It's operational intelligence. Just like we budget, the revenue team, forecasts what they expect for next year revenue wise. We should be doing the same for guest experience. And unfortunately, what I've seen, we don't really look at guest experience. We don't pay attention to guest experience when we are budgeting. And guest experience shows you whether that budget, whether that demand is actually going to actualize or not, right? And again, guest experience is also an early warning sign. Whether you're going to stay busy and you're going to hit your numbers or not. But in terms of what hotels can do, we all know that hotels run on a very tight margins, right? And when things get tight, first things to go are employee programs.
Yeah.
But this is how I look at that is, if employees create your guest experience, why would you remove one thing that helps you enhance that guest experience and really make it special and make that experience flawless? So I think it, it's so simple. It's not about pizza parties, right? Guesting employee engagement is not created by hosting pizza parties. It really starts with removing friction. So focus on one area. Your employees are telling you what's not working, right? Like if there's linen shortages, it's going to show up in your rooms not being ready. So they're giving you early warning signals.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you said something that really resonated. This is not an HR initiative. This is an everyone initiative. From top to bottom, I do think, sometimes frontline employees think it's not up to me to make a great employee experience. That's management's job. It's up to me to make a good guest experience because they're standing in front of me. But everyone contributes to employee and team experiences. How I treat other people, how we build morale, my cheerleaders in the room, like all of that matters. And I think if we're designating this as an HR thing, or if we're designating this as only management, we're already building those silos. So being able to make it a full team initiative, I think, is super important. The same way that our entire team takes care of the guest, our entire team takes care of each other. Have you seen like programs or really good things that have worked with some of your customers on how the whole team can get involved in this? At our previous life, we had what we called a kudos program, and I could give kudos to a team member when I saw something outstanding that they did. They could redeem that for gift cards, right? So being able to make it a full team environment, have you seen things that work really well?
Yeah, that obviously, employee recognition programs, those always work. But I think it's yes, recognition is great. Kind of those things, little things that boost employee morale is fantastic. But I go back to it's all about removing friction, right? It's how can you make their jobs easier?
Mhm.
Because nobody comes to work and wants to do a bad job. Your team
Right.
members come into the hotel, they want to take care of their guests, but sometimes it's out of their control. So let's remove that friction, allow them to do what they came there to do to provide that excellent guest experience.
Yeah, that's great. And do you think that whenever it comes to those signals and that friction point that the guest is or the employee is talking about, are there things that maybe management isn't picking up? Like they're hearing it, but they're not getting it. Do you think that that happens sometimes? And is there anything that, a management training program or any kind of leadership training that can be enforced to like really be able to detect and identify? Is that part of it?
100%, Stephanie. So, I think what we also been doing as an industry is that we've been measuring guest experience, but we
Hmm.
haven't done a great job managing guest experience, right? So what I see a lot of time, like it's the same. I've been in the hospitality industry for almost 30 years, right? And my last job at the hotel was back in 2010, so it's been quite some time. And it's the same issues, right? Long lines up on check-in, rooms are not ready, uh,
Communication.
communication issues. Why
Yep.
haven't we fixed it if we know what the issues are?
Yeah.
I encourage everybody to go back to basics,
I
right? Go
like
back
that
to
a lot.
basics, training, get your team involved, help them understand and buy in into what their interaction, every single interaction with the guest, how that impacts the guest experience.
Yeah. And I think being able to think about as a team member, if I feel empowered to do that, if I feel empowered to take control of the guest experience myself, I think that gives them a little bit of morale boost all on their own. If they're
100%.
limited in the offerings that they can give to the guest, or they're limited in the ways that they can satisfy the guest and take care of issues, that's kind of a beating for them all on their own. I'm not allowed to. I need to go ask for approval, right? So, one thing that stuck out at me in a previous interview we did was with Stay Pineapple, the way that they empower their teams to really make it a fantastic guest experience, whether that's going to the coffee shop because they like local coffees, whether that is making sure that there is communication across the board if we need to book an activity or make something happen. And I think when you bring tools into play and you bring empowered team members into play and you are paying attention to how you're resolving things, that ultimately will drive your guest experience overall, right?
You're absolutely right. I'm a big fan of unreasonable hospitality.
Yeah.
And I actually had a chance to work, I had a privilege of working at the Ritz-Carlton, where it's part of the Ritz-Carlton culture that each employee is empowered to do whatever needed to be done for their to take care of the guest and provide that exceptional experience. I will also tell you that I think we are I talk to a lot of hoteliers on a daily basis, and I see that some of them don't have even just a basic employee listening program, right?
Mm,
They don't really talk to the employees. They do look at the guest satisfaction scores or NPS, but
of
again,
course.
like we mentioned earlier, guest feedback, employee feedback is super important. And you know, I would challenge anybody. Like if you had one data set, only one data set for the next 30 days, employee feedback or guest feedback, which one would you pick?
Which one would you pick? I like immediately, I'm like, guest feedback, but I think I'm
Employee
wrong.
feedback. Employee
Employee
feedback.
feedback.
every single time, because again, I think of it as, driving, looking in the rearview mirror, right?
Yeah,
Yes, feedback tells
it's
you what
already
already
done.
happened. Too late, right? Employee kind of early detection signal.
Yeah. And I think, is it the anonymous employee survey every quarter, or is it, a daily, how are we getting this guest or the employee feedback in a timely manner to be able to address it prior to, the busy season, or making sure that we're getting ahead of the majority of our guest volume?
Yeah, it's annual. It's a great question, Stephanie. It's annual surveys, also followed by pulses throughout the year. And it could be,
Okay.
maybe special events, or a big conference, or like, any kind of special event at your property that you wanted to check in and see how the team members are feeling after this.
Yeah.
And also conversation. Like I said, the guest experience starts with team member conversation with their leadership, and showing them that, yes, we heard you, we are taking action.
Yeah.
Little things that don't cost you a dollar.
Yeah. Do you ever watch Undercover Boss?
I do, yes.
That's what this reminds me of, is stepping down a little bit and getting in the weeds and putting yourself in their shoes and, following along with, this is what they have to struggle with every single day, whether it is a tool or a process or whatever the case is. Like, I always watch that show and I'm like, it's so sweet how at the end they're always like, for one, shocked, but are you really shocked? But for two, they're like, let me fix it right away for you, right? But it took that. And not all of us can go on Undercover Boss. So if we could do these team surveys and we could do these engagements after events, or just the one-on-one, hey, come take a walk with me. Let's have a coffee. Let's have a conversation. Tell me, what was the biggest thing that challenged you today, in a frustrating way? Not in a great, you were creative, but what was the most frustrating thing about your day? And I think listening, documenting, looking at trends of that feedback would be a big deal.
Absolutely. And you talked about undercover boss. I think what I've seen when I was at the hotels back in the day is that, leadership, they kind of sit in their offices
Yeah.
and you rarely see them
You
in
got
the
to be on the
lobby or
floor.
interacting with the guests. And, you don't really know firsthand what's happening. So that's when employee feedback becomes even more
Yeah,
important.
absolutely. And I think, they were in their offices because their systems were tied to their desktop computer. That is not the world we live in anymore. All of the systems are on your phone, on your tablet. You can walk the hotel, you can engage with the guest, and you can still be looking at your dashboards and you're reporting people. So I think that it's a matter of making sure that we're reforming and that we're keeping up with that level of system as well as that level of engagement. And it should give us more time with our guests and with our teams. And I think for me, my best experiences have been when I have seen leadership interacting with their team and engaging with the guest. You don't want it to be, just frontline employees or just the team members that are out there and they're kind of just doing everything by themselves. That doesn't look
Absolutely.
good,
Because
so
then they
I
don't
think
feel
that's a big thing.
supported either. Your team members don't feel that you're there to really help them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Okay, so I have one question for you, kind of unprompted. If you could get every hotel leader to believe one thing about the connection between the team and their guest, what would it be?
That's a good question.
I'm throwing you on the spot here.
Every guest review has an employee story behind it.
I like that. Okay, elaborate a little bit for me. So if I'm looking at my guest review, they didn't name names, they didn't name departments, they just said, this was a rather unpleasant stay. I didn't feel like I got my money's worth.
Yeah. But
What
the employees
employee?
have been telling you about this. You just probably did a poor job listening, right? Again, my story about the housekeeping attendant talking about the
Yep,
vacuum not working. That's, like I said, don't wait for the guest reviews to show up. That's the fire alarm,
get in
right?
front of
Too
it.
late. Look
Yep.
look at your early detection. Look at your smoke detector as
Yeah,
your employee feedback, and take action on that. What is your employees actually telling you? And I would say the best practice is invest in both employee experience program and guest experience. There's so much in kind of seeing how your employee experience impacting your guest
I love
experience.
that. And I think that if we do this, let's say I don't have an employee experience program at all, I implement one. Am I looking at like 90 days before I understand my business and can make change? Is this 30 days or am I talking about a year?
Real time. real time.
Fabulous.
As the feedback from your employees coming in, you can see
You can
the
action it.
trends right away, and you can start taking action. Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome.
And then measure what happens when you take action in the guest experience program, right?
Yeah.
Is that really making a difference with your guests?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is, do you run into the cases where the employees you have the program in place, the employees are using it and it's not being actioned? Nothing's happening still.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Okay.
happens. That
Yeah.
happens. Unfortunately, that happens. And that's where we really come in and work with those properties to help them, because having data is great, but it's all about what you
You
actually
got to
do
do
with
it.
the
You
data,
have
right?
to do something with it. It needs to change behavior, especially in this, what we're talking about here with employee feedback. Like something has to change to be able to influence my guest experience and make that overall better. You can't just ignore it.
I think it's not about spending more money on listening to your employees and listening to your guests. It's about listening better, right?
I like that. Talking less, listening more.
True,
Yeah.
right?
Do you have any closing remarks for us? This was awesome. Like, I just love chatting with you about this stuff. I've always been passionate about people and everything that goes along with it. So it's such a
People,
hot topic for me.
what makes this industry, right? We all been
Absolutely.
talking about AI, and I think AI is great because AI can kind of do all the things that people don't like doing. Outsource it to AI and let us focus on building that human connection, providing that unreasonable hospitality, and making creating those memorable experiences with our guests.
Absolutely. I mean, AI should give us our time back to be able
Yeah,
to spend in the places that matter. That's the point of it. So, for me, I totally agree with you. I think people first and everything else second. And if you take care of the people inside your house, then it will impact the people outside your house.
100%. Think about who works at hotels, especially in operations, right? Front of the house. It's people that like other people, essentially,
Yeah,
right?
they like to
Nobody who
serve.
likes to be behind the desk and looking at Excel file is in operations in front of the house, right?
Yeah.
You came to do this for a reason because you really enjoy taking care of people and providing that service.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should let them in the best way possible.
Enable them.
Enable them. I like it. Perfect. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
it was such a pleasure. Thank you,
Oh, I
Sophia,
really
for being
enjoyed
on
talking to
Industry
you,
Chats today.
Stephanie.
Thank you for everybody watching. And then, of course, we will post this on YouTube on our Fixify channel.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Stephanie.